Hello everyone, my name is Joanna. Thank you so much for coming back. For those of you who are my subscribers, thank you so much for coming back. For those of you who are new, welcome. I hope whatever you find here you will like, and I hope you stay. Let me just be very brief. Interesting messages in the month of March. For one, they flowed very differently. There seems to be a lot of transformation going on, and I do, particularly in the month of March, and it seems to be consistent with almost every single sign. Very, very consistent. So if you are drawn to a certain sign that you don't necessarily look at, by all means listen and see if there's a message there for you. The messages are not time bound, which means there is no end and beginning. These messages may make sense to you because they have happened. You are in the middle of it happening, or it will happen at some point down the road. So do yourself a favor. If it doesn't make sense to you right away, listen to it in a few weeks' time or even a few months. And from those of you who are regular subbies and subscribers and you do comment, it looks like 98% of you find that this makes sense with as time passes. Also, my focus and intention is always, always, always to give you something to think about that will help you understand yourself more deeply. In other words, my focus isn't on predicting. If an information comes through that is of futuristic nature, I am more than happy always to give. However, my focus is more about helping you understand how you create, how you make things happen. Because the moment you know how to make things happen, you will stop waiting for someone to tell you what's going to happen, because you'll be able to create it. And that is always my aim. That is what I want to teach. That is what I do teach. And that is how Spirit is working with me. What can I give you to help you see yourself as the master of your own creation that you are, so that you can understand? And once you understand, you can create in a different way. So that is always my intention, and I hope that whatever comes through falls with that. Let's put it that way. I think that's all I have for you. Listen to the other signs if these don't make sense. Of course, this is general. It may not fit with everybody, although I'm very surprised how many of you are responding and saying this is exactly what you're going through. So also, very quickly, again, the layout is very different. I don't even have a layout this month, and it was mostly intuitive. So you will see some of the messages. I look at cards, and some of them I don't even look at cards because it's flowing. So the way information is flowing for me is also very different. So I am under also a transformation, if you will. And I think that's all I have. Of course, there's a 6-month projection for you down below from January till the end of June. If you're more interested in that information is there. And more than anything, thank you so much for liking, for sharing, for coming back. For those of you who are new, welcome. I hope you stay. Have yourself a wonderful month of March. And yeah, let's get going. Hello, beautiful Scorpios. These are going to be your messages for the month of March 2019. I feel this is going to be purely intuitive message. So even though I have a whole bunch of cards spread out, I don't know how much I'm going to go through the cards. They're just pointers for me to see, to get my messages going. But let me say this to you. Consistency is key. And you will begin to understand this not only in the month of March, but also in the month of April. It seems that many of you are undergoing a process of purification or cleanse, and this is more so spiritual cleanse or purification, if you will, which is the same way as saying you are weeding out of your environment that which no longer serves you, which also includes your thinking in terms of your thinking, and which is always connected to your belief system. Why is March being shown to me as being very very prominent for you in terms of the significance? There's something in the month of March that is the image I'm getting is when a water comes to a boil point, then the water is ready. So the boiling point is what does this signify actually? readiness. So it seems like the month of March is going to be, in terms of energy, primed and ready for you to either jump into something new, change something drastic about you, which is also a set of belief systems, clean up your act, if you will, which means you finally set a goal for yourself and you refuse to let it go. In other words, you will commit to yourself fully. So this could be a commitment that you are choosing to no longer partake in, and commitments are of various kinds. But right smack in the middle of March, it's almost like I'm looking at this crevice, and it feels like the first half of the month is one way, and then the second half of the month seems to be somehow different. And the two sides are separated by this crevice, and the crevice is it's a space of what is it that I'm looking at? Unfamiliarity, but also something that you have to overcome. So it sounds like many of you who are listening to this will have to overcome some sort of what do I want to call this? It's not an obstacle. I want to say a challenge. So let's say if you are an athlete, you run long distance, and then at a certain point you get really tired, but then you decide you have this goal in your mind and you're just going to keep on going. So I have no idea what it is that I'm connecting to and who it is that I'm connecting to this with, but there seems to be something in the month of March that offers with it tremendous opportunity for change and growth. And actually, let me just go through some of the cards that I have. So purification is your theme for the month of March. When I asked what the theme is, the card of slow and steady was shown to me. Now, I don't even know what, well, obviously slow and steady, we know what that means, but 1 and 2 is also 3, which is the month of March. 1 is new beginnings, 2 is choices. Here's how I see this message. When I look at this message, right away I'm being struck at her body language and the way she feels when she's facing whatever she's facing, and I'm feeling she's facing her past. So it feels like an opportunity to look at things from your past, not for the purpose of staying there or for the purpose of saying, see, I told you so, but for the purpose of observing it possibly from a different perspective. And as a result of the different perspective, you let it go. And the next card that came up is the card of Empress. Doesn't get much better than that. This is all about growth. And as you can see, this Empress is holding a beautiful baby, which is representing brand new growth. She's also in green color and gold. Okay, gold is purification. Interesting. That's what I'm hearing. And green, as we know, is very healing. Green is also the color of heart, even though we look at the heart usually as the red color. The what's the word? Connection to the heart chakra is the color. It's the color green. So there is an expansion and birth happening, and perhaps that's the crevice that I was seeing. The first part of the March was one way, and the second part of the March seems to be very different because you have overcome something. By the end of March, for most of you, I feel, and for some of you in the month of April, you will understand what this means. As you listen to it now, you may have no clue. And this could be anything. It is some sort of a decision that comes up. It's some challenge at work you have to overcome. It could do something with responsibility that you decide to do something different, and as a result, you jump over some sort of a not commitment, but challenge you were dealing with. It can come out in various different ways. Point is, it's a beautiful card to start with for the month of March as far as a theme. And just like growth and expansion goes, chances are you might bump into walls of unfamiliarity. In other words, when we expand, we inevitably move past our comfort zone. So don't be surprised if something comes up in the month of March that makes you actually want to think back in terms of, let's say, insecurities. And oftentimes when we expand, we are being pushed past our boundaries. And I'll give an example in a moment. And when we reach a certain what's the word I want to use? When we reach a certain stage, we start to move past our comfort zones, and that often triggers our fears. So for example, let's say, and I also want to say, you're closer to it than you think. That statement is for those of you that have been working very hard on something in terms of manifesting, whether a job or a relationship, a certain set of circumstances coming together. The message is you're closer than you think. So also in the same breath, I want to say, if this is you, if you have been working on something and it's not happening, you might be feeling quite frustrated with the lack of progress. The fact of the matter is, progress is happening. It just may not be happening the way you think or in the time frame that you think. But there's no getting away from this. As you see here, this is harvest. This is abundance. This is all good things, but it is coming as a result of you expanding. And as I mentioned, expansion can make us bump into uncomfortableness. So why might this be important for you to hear? Because some of your fears might come up. Fears such as, am I good enough? Should or shouldn't I do this? If I do this, will I be expected or I be respected? If I say no, will people dislike me, and that feels like rejection? If I put myself first, does that mean that I'm being selfish, or it doesn't matter? You may come up. As a matter of fact, it's certain for most of you who are listening. You may come up with, there may be some situation in your life that triggers one of your fears come up to the surface. Now, the reason why it is important to pay attention to this is because this is not a time for you not to know things. In other words, this is a time for you to observe it from a distance. It is a time for you to reconnect yourself with your own self. In other words, example, if you have been constantly rejecting yourself for whatever reason, and we have too many reasons to list, if you have been always rejecting yourself, then chances are, let's use a commitment as an example. If you have been seeking a love relationship or a commitment, chances are you had trouble finding one, because a relationship is going to reflect to you the relationship you have with you. So chances are you will feel rejected in relationships, or you have felt rejected, or somebody will reject you, or you were rejected. Point is that if you have constantly been in a state of lack in terms of your own sense of safety and security of you being you, then the chances of you solidifying a solid relationship is not very high. So whatever comes up for you, and that was just an example, that could be equally the same with attracting money, attracting health, whatever it is. But I feel you guys get the point. So looks like in March, some of these things may come up for you. When they do, it is important not to play it down. In other words, the reason why we have feelings is because feelings tell us where we are. As a matter of fact, we are here to experience felt perception. We're not here to learn or to understand. We're here to understand from a felt perception. So the point I'm trying to make here is, some of you may dismiss those feelings as unimportant or figments of your imagination, or, oh, I'm not going to worry about that. Whatever that is, chances are, if you're trying to push something away, it's something that's really important to you. Because if it wasn't important, if it didn't serve an important part in your life, then you would have no need to push it away. So kind of interesting how it's being put. Chances are that you will experience something that will reflect your own fears, and what you decide to do with it is up to you. But trying to understand yourself without judgment, rather than trying to push something away, is going to serve you down the road, and it's important for you to deal with. Now, why would that be the case? For some of you, the way showing message tells me is that many of you are healers who are listening, or healers to be, or whatever that is, or you are here to come out of your own struggles in order to help others find their way. Whether you're a counselor, whether you're a healer, whether you are a therapist, whether you are whatever you are, it feels like many of you are coming out of hiding. And this is not hiding in home. I mean, yes, for some of you, you may have been keeping yourself away from others, but this is you coming out of your shell. And the reason why we hide in the shell in the first place is because, well, oftentimes we're too shy, or we have been told we're not good enough, or whatever gazillion other things that we have heard while growing up that make us kind of go into our shells. Once we commit to ourselves with that belief, in other words, once we begin to believe that, yeah, that's the case, I'm not good enough, it becomes who you are. It becomes effectively your personality. You action that every single day without even knowing it. So the purpose of that is that when it comes up in the month of March or April, it is important for you to recognize, as for some of you, recognizing this, which is a pattern, will also help others overcome the same challenges. So it sounds like I'm talking to those of you who are healers, would be healers in training. And remember, healer can mean anything. Whatever you decide healer is. But if you have tendencies to want to help somebody on ongoing basis, or you are someone that regularly helps other people, shows them the way, but it's not your profession, chances are you might be slowly entering into a frame of your mind where you might say to yourself, maybe this is something I would like to do for a living, and that's something that could be very rewarding for you. For some of you, you already are healers, and if that's the case, whatever fears you might be holding on to, those fears will, I have to be very careful how I say this. It's not that those fears will block your efforts, but those fears will minimize the level of service you can provide. In other words, if you think of yourself as a vessel and your vessel is plugged in, anything that goes through this vessel it can't go as freely as if the vessel is completely clean. So imagine a drain, and that's just an example. So if you already are a healer and you have some things inside of you that are preventing you shining your light, then your ability to help others shine light will be limited. Should I expand on that? No, I'm being asked to leave. So that's an interesting point to ponder. But also it doesn't help you in terms of being your highest potential. Also, the hummingbird, it appears so many times recently that it's actually quite fascinating. Aside from the fact that it's one of my favorite birds, its fast moving wings is a bit of like magic, that an animal of that tiny size can move their body so quickly that we don't even see. We have fans, but those are things that are manufactured. Anyway, they fascinate me. Point is, this little bird is about taking flight. It is about soaring high. It is also about soaring above emotion. So that's a huge metaphor for those of you who have continually felt emotionally stuck for whatever reason. If you have felt insecure within yourself, if you have felt unworthy, if you have felt less than, if you have denied yourself the ability to fully be loved because you believe you're not good enough or you're not worthy, anything of that sort, to me, symbolically, with this message says you're about to take flight. Now, I can't help but notice this looks like sunrise or sunset. Could be sunrise or sunset. I'm asking which area this is, and this is I'm hearing solar plexus. For many of you, this lack of, let's call it insecurity, lack of security, is predominantly situated in your gut. And if that's the case, your ability to trust your gut would also be minimized. That's interesting how they're saying it. It looks like, from what I'm seeing, that imagine layers of a whole bunch of heavy energy on top of your ability to see and perceive things. It kind of dampens the effectiveness or the it's same idea if you wear glasses and then your glasses have fingerprints on it and you keep looking at it and eventually just kind of is what you see. And then somebody says, hey, let me clean your glasses, and you put your glasses on, you're like, whoa, God, I can see so clearly. So that's the metaphor that's being shown. Where was I going with this? I don't even remember where I was going with this. But yes, the hummingbird to me symbolizes flight. Some of you may experience or may have been experiencing digestive upsets or digestive issues. Obviously, if something persists, then you need to go check this out. But for those of you who are fine, who know you are fine, this is where I feel you hold a lot of your angst, but also it's where you hold a lot of your intense energy. This is from the place which you give. So if you are someone who, again, is feeling of less than worthy, your ability to receive in this area is going to be diminished. And that is connected to our ability. Solar plexus is connected to our ability to create and to be confident. So all these things are kind of coming up. For some reason, also, I'm seeing the sun. And sun to me, sun is, depends who you ask. But sun to me is represented by a very male energy. It's very dominant, male heat. So this is also for some of you who have experienced some unexpressed anger, resentment. If you have anything like that in your background, in terms of holding on to these emotions, there's nothing wrong with experiencing those emotions. We have them for a reason. But if you hold on to things, even self-criticism, then that energy will burn you from inside out. So some of you may be experiencing I want to say heartburn, even though that moves up, but that's to do with digestion. That's interesting. That's really interesting. So make sure that you do not run on empty, because if you run on empty, and the energy that you have access to or that you are you have contained with yourself can scorch you. And why is it that I'm saying all of this? In other words, if you do not take good care of yourself, your gifts, although magnificent, can feel like a burden. And that's because just like any skill or gift, it has to be managed effectively, or it begins to manage you. So I'm sure there's a reason why I'm saying this. For some of you, it's really important for me to address. Maybe some of you are those who continually and unconditionally give to others, but in the process you are forgetting about yourself. And over time, when this is prolonged, when this behavior continues, a sense of anger and resentment can creep up, because it's natural. We are meant to give and receive. So when we do either one or the other, predominantly we lose our sense of balance, and that stuff will always come out, one end or the other. So don't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are feeling really tired, especially in the last few months, last few years, due to overgiving. And you are choosing to no longer participate in that. Not that you will not be a giver, particularly for those of you who are healers. Not that you will not be a giver, but you will be a giver and receiver. And in order to be good at giving and receiving, you as a vessel has to be clean. In other words, you have to have an even flow. So the word purification is actually a perfect word for you, because this is time. Any time is a good time facing the past, but particularly in the month of March, there's some kind of an alignment in the month of March that makes this exercise, so to speak, particularly intense and particularly effective. I'm also hearing that doing it around the full moon, and I'm not an astrologer, so I have no clue. Doing it around full moon will almost like double its effectiveness. There's something about the ritual around full moon. I suppose full moon means completion, I guess, to me. I'm going to have to research that out. But if this makes sense to some of you, then by all means, please do let me know. Is there anything else that I need to... Okay, so when I was saying, is there anything else that I need to say to them? Before I even finished that sentence in my head, I heard, learning compassion for self is very important. It is one of the best things that you will give yourself, is to look at yourself through the eyes of God. Oh, that's heavy. Wow. Self-reflection is only scary when we come from the place of judgment. When we look at our past without judgment, without attachments, but for the purpose to understand in order to create something better or something different, then looking back or looking at our stuff wouldn't be this hard. And if something comes up in the month of March, and listen, things always come up. March in particular is, for some reason, energetically aligned for you to release yourself from your past. So although we all, things come up all the time, we don't necessarily pay attention. As a matter of fact, we usually push it away because we don't want to deal with it. But in order for you to not deal with it any longer, you first must acknowledge it's there, and then rather than push it away, release it by accepting it for what it is. Acceptance is always the key, and acceptance allows you to come from the place of now. We can the card 3 March, growth, opportunities. There's no question in my mind that many of you are wonderful creators, and you are moving towards a much more fulfilling future. One of the reasons why you are heading there is because you're no longer letting your old fears obstruct your view. And when our view is obstructed, we can't see clearly. And if we can't see clearly, we can't make the right decisions. You see where this is going. This is an analogy for when we have certain things that we are attached to from our past, emotionally speaking, we are not clear within ourselves on what it is that we want. And that's often the case. And I've said many times, we all think we want some this or that, but we don't really know what we want. And so until we recognize what it is that we are seeking, and from my experience, majority of people seek same things: love, compassion, understanding, and a sense of belonging and security. Those are all the things that make us human thrive. And there's obviously more. So if you have been experiencing anything less than in those departments, then looking at what might be blocking you from it, not from judgment, but from observation, might be just what the doctor ordered in the month of March. I hear history repeats itself often. Make sure you don't repeat your history. So purification, we repeat history because something is unresolved. The moment we resolved something, the moment the history, there is no repeating. There's no need. And with that, I am going to say goodbye. I keep hearing the month of June. Something is important in the month of June. And it feels like a celebration. It feels like you won something. Now, whether it's actually something that you are winning or you feel like you've won, because emotionally you will feel completely exhilarated. It's one of the two. And if it's both, bonus. And that's how I'm going to leave it with you. Again, this is mostly intuitive. I hope this makes sense. It makes no sense to me. So please let me know if this does make sense. And of course, as goes with all my messages, usually when you first hear it, it may make no sense to you. But by the time the end of the month is over or you are into the next month, these things begin to shift and shape to the point where you're starting to recognize how this is fitting in your life. So listen to it again. For private sessions, that information is of course down below. I would be humbled and honored. And until April, good luck and see you soon.